Become addicted to improving yourself. What is an addiction, really? Think about that for a moment. Most of us, when we hear that word, we think of something negative, something dark, something that's got its hooks in you and won't let go. We think of people ruining their lives, destroying their potential, losing everything that matters. And yes, addiction can be all of those things. But here's what I want to ask you. What if we flipped it? What if the most powerful thing you could do, the thing that would change everything about your life, was to become addicted? Not to something that tears you down, but to something that builds you up. Not to something that steals from you, but to something that gives back 1,000 times over. What if you became addicted to improving yourself? Now, before you think that's some clever wordplay, let me tell you, it's not. It's the most serious idea I could share with you today. And here's why. Addiction is powerful. Addiction doesn't negotiate. Addiction doesn't make excuses. Addiction shows up every single day, rain or shine, whether you feel like it or not. What if we took that same force, that same unstoppable momentum, and pointed it in the direction of our own growth? Wouldn't that be something? Let me take you back. Many years ago, I was working at Sears. I was making $5,000 a year. That was it. I was 25 years old, and I was broke. Not just broke in terms of money, though that was certainly true. I was broke in terms of everything. My education was limited. My skills were basic. My future looked about as bright as a room with no windows. But then I met someone who changed my life, Mr. Earl Schoaf. And here's what he did. He didn't give me money. He didn't give me a job. He gave me something far more valuable. He gave me a direction. He showed me that the gap between where I was and where I wanted to be could be closed, but only one way, by changing who I was becoming. Mr. Schoaf taught me that your income will rarely exceed your personal development, and that stuck with me. That burned into my mind. And he gave me a simple assignment. Read one book a month. Just one. And I thought, one book a month? That's nothing. But here's what I didn't understand at the time. I wasn't addicted to reading yet. I was going to have to become addicted. I was going to have to develop a hunger for it. And let me tell you, when you finally taste what it's like to feed your mind deliberately, every single day, you can't stop. You don't want to stop. Jot this down. Most people will read one book in the next year. Do you know how many books an addicted person will read? 12 at minimum. More if they're really hungry. And that's just the beginning. Here's the key. When you stop reading at school, and most people do, you stop growing. The moment you walk out of that schoolhouse for the last time, a lot of people think they're done learning. The world was your classroom for 12 years, 18 years, maybe 4 years of college. And then they close that door, and people say, well, I'm done, I've got my education, now I'm just going to coast. And coast they do, right down a mountain with no brakes. But the people who become addicted, they realize something profound. The real education is just beginning. School was just the warm-up. School was just teaching you how to think, or at least it was supposed to. But the real curriculum, the one that actually matters, that's life. That's the world. That's books and conversations and failures and observing how other people solve problems. I had a mentor who used to say, the library is just like a gold mine. But here's the thing, you've got to dig. You've got to know what you're looking for. You've got to be intentional. You've got to have a hunger, because there's gold everywhere if you know how to look. Curiosity. That's the word. Let it sit there for a moment. Curiosity. When you were a child, you had it in abundance. Do you remember? Everything was interesting. Why is the sky blue? Why do birds fly? Why do people get angry? Why? You were insatiable. You would drive your parents absolutely crazy with questions. And then, what happened? Life happened. School happened. But not in the way it was supposed to. Instead of deepening your curiosity, A lot of schools killed it. They taught you the answers instead of encouraging you to ask better questions. And by the time you're an adult, most people have had their natural hunger trained right out of them. Here's what I learned. The people who stay young, not in years, but in spirit, in energy, in their whole approach to life, are the people who never lost that childlike curiosity. They ask more questions now than they did in school. Better questions, deeper questions. Questions like, how can I be better? What am I not seeing? Who can teach me something today? Now here's the next one. When you become addicted to self-improvement, something remarkable happens. You start to notice things. You start to see patterns. You notice how people who are growing talk differently than people who are stuck. You notice what they read. You notice how they spend their time. You notice what they say yes to and what they say no to. One time, I was at a seminar, and a woman raised her hand with a question. She said, Mr. Rohn, I want to be successful, but I'm worried. I'm worried it might change me. I might become someone different. My friends might not like me anymore. And I looked at her and I said, you're absolutely right. You will become someone different. That's the whole point. You will become someone better. You will become someone with more options, more confidence, more capability. And yes, some people might not like that version of you. But here's what you need to understand. The right people will. And the people who can't celebrate your growth, maybe they were never the right people to begin with. Let me give you another way to think about this. A few years ago, I was watching a little girl in a grocery store. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old. And she was watching her mother shop. And her mother walked past an aisle, and the little girl said something I've never forgotten. She said, Mommy, how come you always get the same thing? The mother said, well, that's what we like. And the little girl said, but how do you know if you like something else if you never try it? Out of the mouths of babes. That's it. That's the whole thing right there. We get comfortable, we get settled, we find the path that works, and then we walk it over and over again, and we never venture off to see what else might be possible. But the person who's addicted to improving themselves, they try things. They taste new ideas. They pick up a book they've never heard of before. They have a conversation with someone completely different from them. They take a class. They ask for feedback. They fail. They fail again. And they get better because they keep tasting new flavors. Here's what I want you to understand about the power of daily input. This is crucial. Every single day, your mind is receiving input. Every single day. You're listening to people. You're watching things. You're absorbing ideas. Some of them helpful, some of them poisonous. Some of them building you up, and some of them tearing you down. Now, most people don't manage this process. They just let it happen. They turn on the radio, and whatever's on the radio, that's what feeds them. They watch whatever's on television, and that's what shapes their thinking. They listen to whoever's talking around them, and they absorb that energy. But the person who's addicted to improvement, they take control of the dial. They decide what goes into their mind. They decide who influences them. They decide what ideas they're going to marinate in and for how long. Jot this down. You cannot change the results until you change the input. Let me repeat that because it's important. You cannot change the results until you change the input. You cannot harvest apples from an apple tree that you've never planted. You cannot reap a crop that you've never sown. And you cannot become someone new by thinking the same old thoughts and reading the same old books and listening to the same old voices. The library has books on every subject imaginable. Thousands of them. Mountains of them. Each one is like a little capsule. Inside that capsule is someone's best thinking, someone's hard-won wisdom, someone's breakthroughs distilled into pages you can read in a matter of days or weeks. Isn't that extraordinary? A person spends decades figuring something out, decades of trial and error, mistakes, learning, adjusting, and then they put it all in a book, and you can read it for $15. Or free at the library. And most people won't. Most people walk past that treasure like it's invisible. But not you, not anymore, because you're going to become addicted. Here's something Mr. Schoaf told me that I'll never forget. He said, Jim, the difference between who you are today and who you'll be in 5 years comes down to two things: the books you read and the people you associate with. And I thought about that. I really chewed on that idea. And he was right. 5 years goes by like nothing. In 5 years, you'll be a different person. That's guaranteed. The only question is, will you be different in ways you chose or different in ways that just happened to you? If you're addicted to your own improvement, you'll be intentional. You'll read books that stretch you. You'll seek out people who are ahead of you. You'll have conversations with people who see things differently. You'll say yes to learning even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable, because that's where the real growth happens. Now let me tell you about something else that happens when you become addicted. Your whole world changes. And I don't just mean your bank account or your title or your house, though those things might change too. I mean your whole way of being in the world. See, when you're feeding your mind deliberately, when you're reading good books, when you're asking good questions, when you're observing how other people solve problems, you start to notice solutions everywhere. You start to become creative. You start to become valuable to other people because you bring ideas to them. You bring perspective. You bring energy. And here's the thing, nobody tells you. As you improve, everything around you improves. Your marriage gets better because you're a better partner. Your business gets better because you're better at solving problems. Your relationships get better because you're more present, more thoughtful, more interesting. Your health gets better because you read about nutrition and exercise and you start making better choices. It's not magic. It's simple math. When you change, everything responds to that change. Think about it like a garden. When you stop maintaining a garden, when you stop pulling weeds, when you stop watering, when you stop planting new seeds, the garden doesn't stay the same. It doesn't freeze. It declines. It gets overtaken by weeds. That's just the natural order. But when you tend your garden, when you work on it every single day, when you're intentional and deliberate, when you remove what's not working and plant what might, that garden becomes beautiful. It becomes productive. It becomes a place you want to spend time in. Your mind is a garden too. Most people neglect theirs. They let the weeds grow. They don't plant anything new. They just let it be. And they wonder why nothing good grows. But you're going to be different. You're going to become addicted to planting seeds of thought. You're going to become addicted to pulling weeds of negativity. You're going to become addicted to watering those seeds with daily attention and care. Here's what I learned about learning itself. There's a compounding effect. It's like compound interest, but it's interest on your mind, on your capabilities, on your understanding. If you read one book, you understand that one book, maybe. If you read 10 books, you start to see patterns. You start to connect ideas. Something one author said makes sense only because you read something another author said 5 books earlier. It all starts to fit together in ways you couldn't predict. But most people read one book and stop. They say, well, I read a book once. That didn't change anything. And they're right. One book often won't change everything. But what if you read one book a month? That's 12 books a year. That's 120 books in 10 years. And those 120 books will have changed who you are so fundamentally that you won't even recognize your old self. Hunger. That's the other word I want to sit with you for a moment. Hunger. Not the kind in your stomach, though you should feed that too, but the hunger in your spirit. The hunger for knowledge. The hunger for growth. The hunger for becoming. Here's the key. That hunger is not something you wake up with automatically. You don't get out of bed and say, I'm hungry to improve. For most people, the default is comfort. The default is easy. The default is staying where you are. But you can create that hunger. You can develop that addiction. And here's how. You start. You just start. You pick up a book, any book, something that interests you, and you read it. Not because you have to, not because someone told you to, but because you're curious. And when you finish that book, something happens. You'll want the next one. And that's when the addiction really begins. That's when you realize, wait, there are ideas out there that I didn't know about. There are ways to think about things that I'd never considered. There are solutions to problems I've been struggling with. And once you've tasted that, you can't unknow it. You can't unsee it. You don't want to go back. I met a man once who told me about his grandmother. He said his grandmother didn't have much formal education. She grew up poor. But every single night, after she finished her work, after the house was quiet, she would read by candlelight, books she borrowed from the library, on any subject that interested her. For 50 years, she did this. And he said, Mr. Rohn, my grandmother knew more about history, science, literature, and human nature than most of the college-educated people I know. She was one of the smartest, most interesting people I've ever met. And it wasn't because of school. It was because she was addicted to learning. That's the story right there. That's what's possible. Now, I want to address something. I want to talk about the almost moment. I was almost 40 years old when my health started to fail. Not dramatically, not all at once, but I could feel it. I could feel the energy slipping away, and I realized something. I'd spent years feeding my mind and my spirit, but I'd neglected my body. So I became addicted to something else. I became addicted to learning about health. I read books. I talked to doctors. I changed my diet. I started exercising. I became a student of my own body, and my life changed again, because health is the foundation for everything else. You can have the greatest mind in the world, but if you don't have the energy to use it, what good is it? So jot this down. Your addiction to improvement has to be comprehensive. It's not just about reading. It's not just about ideas. It's about your whole self, your body, your spirit, your relationships, your finances, your skills, all of it. Here's what I want to say about people who stop growing. Around age 25, most people stop being a student. They think they've learned what they need to learn. They've got their job, they've got their life figured out, and they just stop. They settle in, and they spend the next 40 years not becoming anything new. And that's a tragedy. That's a genuine tragedy, because the person you could have become if you just kept going, that person is real. That person exists in possibility. You just chose not to pursue them. The person who becomes addicted, though that person is on an entirely different trajectory, at 30, they're better than they were at 20. At 40, they're dramatically better than they were at 30. At 50, at 60, at 70, they're still growing, still learning, still improving. They're still hungry. That's not just a different life. That's a different quality of life entirely. Let me give you the mathematics of it. If you improve just 1% every single day, just 1%, do you know what happens? In a year, you're not 1% better. You're 37 times better. That's the power of compounding. That's what happens when you become addicted to incremental improvement. Now, here's the next one. When you're addicted to your own improvement, you become valuable to other people. You become interesting. You become someone people want to be around, someone people want to listen to, someone people want to work with. Because here's the thing about people. We're drawn to growth. We're attracted to people who are getting better. There's something magnetic about someone who's on a journey of improvement. They have energy. They have ideas. They have perspective. They're not stuck. They're not bitter. They're not making excuses. I remember a guy I worked with years ago. His name was Dennis. And Dennis had a job that most people would consider boring. He worked in an office, doing routine tasks. But Dennis was reading. Dennis was asking questions. Dennis was taking classes at night. Dennis was becoming something more than his job title. And pretty soon, people started noticing. His boss noticed. His peers noticed. People wanted his input on problems. People wanted his advice. And within 5 years, Dennis had moved up in his company and started his own venture on the side. Not because he was doing the same thing everyone else was doing, but because he'd become addicted to improvement. Now, I want to be direct about something. This path isn't easy. Becoming addicted to your own growth isn't the comfortable path. It's the path of less resistance in the long term. But in the short term, it requires effort. It requires discipline. It requires saying no to some things so you can say yes to others. There are nights when you'll want to watch television instead of read. There are mornings when you'll want to sleep in instead of exercise. There are moments when learning something new will feel hard and you'll want to quit. This is all true, but here's the thing. The easy path gets more and more crowded as time goes on. The hard path, the path of growth and improvement, gets emptier because most people don't have what it takes to stay on it. But you're going to be different because you're not choosing this for someone else. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're doing this for yourself. You're doing this because you've realized something fundamental. The greatest investment you can make is in you. Let me tell you about a Girl Scout I met once. She was about 9 years old, and she was selling cookies. And I asked her why she was working so hard to sell cookies. And she said something that surprised me. She said, "Sir, I'm not selling cookies. I'm building character. The cookies are just the vehicle." Out of the mouths of babes again. That's exactly right. You're not reading books. You're building a mind. You're not going to the gym. You're building strength. You're not taking a class. You're building capability. You're not having conversations. You're building relationships. Everything is in service of becoming. Here's what I want you to understand about the library. The library is one of the greatest treasures of our civilization, and nobody goes there anymore. People walk past libraries like they're empty buildings, but they're not empty. They're absolutely full of ideas, full of possibilities, full of lifetimes of human wisdom. For free, just walk in and take what you want, and most people don't. Wouldn't that be something if you became one of the people who did? Now, here's where we get to the action part, because this can't just be a nice idea that feels good for an hour and then goes away. This has to become your life. This has to become the addiction. Here's what I want you to do, starting today, and I mean today, not tomorrow, not Monday, today. Go to the library. It doesn't matter what you read. Just pick something that interests you, something that makes you curious. Pick it up, check it out, bring it home. Tomorrow, read at least one chapter, just one. Read it carefully. Underline things that stick out to you. Write in the margins. Talk back to the author. Make it active, not passive. Find one person, just one, who's ahead of you in some area you want to improve. Someone who knows more, someone who's doing better. And ask them to coffee or lunch or just talk to them on the phone. Ask them what they read. Ask them what they've learned. Become their student. Look at your schedule. Where are you wasting time? Where are you sitting in front of a screen, not getting anything back? Cut it. Cut it ruthlessly. That time is going to be your investment in yourself. Get a notebook. Start writing down ideas. When you read something good, when you learn something new, write it down. Don't trust your memory. Write it down. And then look at what you've written. Think about it. How does it apply to your life? And here's the last thing, and this is the important one. Tell someone else what you're doing. Tell them you're becoming addicted to your own improvement. Not in a boastful way, but in a real way. I'm reading more, I'm learning, I'm trying to become better, and when you say it out loud, something shifts. It becomes real. It becomes a commitment. Because here's what I've learned, and I'll close with this. The quality of your life in 5 years will be determined entirely by the books you read, the people you associate with, and the thoughts you think between now and then. That's it. That's the whole equation. The books, they feed your mind with ideas and wisdom and perspective. They expand what you believe is possible. The people, they challenge you, encourage you, show you what's possible, hold you accountable, They lift you up. The thoughts, those are the ones you choose. Those are the ones you feed. Those are the ones you water with attention and energy. And the more you feed thoughts of improvement, thoughts of possibility, thoughts of growth, the more those thoughts grow. So become addicted. Not to something that destroys you, not to something that steals from you, but to something that builds you, something that adds to you, something that makes you more yourself than you've ever been before. Become addicted to learning. Become addicted to growing. Become addicted to improving. Because here's the ultimate truth, and I need you to get this. All life forms naturally strive to reach their maximum potential. The oak tree reaches as high as it can. The eagle flies as well as it can. The wolf hunts as effectively as it can. Everything in nature is striving. Everything is reaching. Everything is trying to become the most complete version of itself. Everything except humans, we have a choice. We have dignity of choice. We can reach toward our potential or we can settle. We can feed our growth or we can starve it. We can become addicted to improvement or we can become addicted to comfort. And that choice, that's the most important choice you'll ever make. So what's it going to be? Are you going to read that book? Are you going to seek out that mentor? Are you going to change the input so the output can change? Are you going to stop settling for the person you are and start becoming the person you're capable of being? Because the person you could become, that person is waiting for you. That person is real. That person is possible. You just have to decide to become addicted to reaching them. And when you do, when you really do, everything changes. Your health improves. Your relationships improve. Your income improves. Your confidence improves. Your perspective improves because you improve. That's the secret. Become addicted to improving yourself. Not in a year, not in a month. Starting today. Now go read something good. Become ruthless with your goals. My mentor, Mr. Schoaf, once looked at my goal list and said, Jim, this isn't a goal list, this is a wish list. And there's a big difference between wishes and goals. I'll never forget that moment. I was sitting there in his office thinking I'd done something smart, something productive. I had my list all written out, but he saw right through it. And that's when everything changed for me. See, I had confused two things. I thought that if I wrote something down, if I said I wanted it, if I kind of hoped for it well, that made it a goal. But that's not how it works. That's the mistake millions of people make every single day. Here's what I found out. A wish is something you hope happens. A wish is something you think about when you have spare time. A wish is something that feels good to say at a party. Oh, I want to make 6 figures. I want to travel the world. I want to be healthy and fit. But that's all it is, talk. Wishes are for people who haven't decided yet. Now let me give you the definition that changed my life. A goal is something you're willing to sacrifice for. A goal is something you protect. A goal is something you think about every single day, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen. There's ruthlessness in a real goal. Jot this down. There's a moment in everyone's life when they have to make a choice. Are you going to be somebody who makes wishes or somebody who makes decisions? Because that's really what we're talking about here. A decision means you've cut off the other options. You've made a choice and you're sticking with it. Most people never reach their goals because they never really had goals in the first place. They had fantasies. They had dreams. They had pleasant thoughts. But they never made the decision that their goal was more important than their comfort. And when that moment came, and it always comes, when they had to choose between their goal and something easy, something fun, something comfortable, they chose the comfort. Every single time. Here's the key. Ruthlessness isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's saying this matters more. This is what I'm committed to. Everything else takes second place. That's ruthless. Not mean. Not cold. Just absolutely clear about your priorities. Think about this. In nature, you see it all the time. The farmer who wants a great harvest doesn't plant seeds and then just hope it works out. He protects that field. He pulls the weeds. He removes what doesn't belong. He waters it. He tends to it. He's ruthless about it. Because he knows if he's not ruthless about protecting it, someone else's weeds will grow in his garden. That's exactly what happens with your goals. If you're not ruthless about protecting them, if you're not ruthless about eliminating what doesn't serve them, then everything else in the world will creep into your life and choke them out. Your goals won't die from one big bad decision. They'll die from 1,000 little compromises. Let me tell you about a young man I knew. Good kid, wanted to be an entrepreneur, had the dream. But when it came time to work on his business, when it came time to read the books he needed to read, when it came time to make the phone calls and do the hard work, he was always doing something else. He was always available. He was always friendly. He was always accommodating. And 10 years later, he was still wanting to be an entrepreneur. He just wanted it. He didn't commit to it. There's a difference, a big one. But here's what really happened with that young man. And this is important, so jot this down. He had the goal written down somewhere, maybe on a piece of paper, maybe in his phone. But he never reviewed it, never. He'd look at his phone 15, 20 times a day, but he never looked at his goal. He had time for scrolling, for games, for entertainment, but not for his own future. And when I asked him why, he said something that broke my heart. He said, "I forgot I wanted that." You forgot? How do you forget your own dream? But that's the problem. Without daily review, without constant attention, your goal fades. It becomes just another thought, just another wish. I want you to understand something. Your goal is a living thing. It needs attention. It needs protection. It needs your focus. Ignore it, and it will wither. Like a plant that never gets water. Like a relationship that never gets attention. Like your health if you never exercise. Your goals are the same way. They need you to show up for them every single day. Here's what I've learned. The written goal is the starting point. You've got to write it down, not type it, write it. There's something about the act of writing that commits your brain in a different way. Write it down, be specific, not "I want to be successful." That's a wish. That's nothing. Write, "I want to earn $100,000 in the next 12 months by growing my client base to 50 customers. That's a goal. Why? Because now you can measure it, you can track it, you can work toward it with precision. You know what success looks like. You know what you're aiming at. Most people's goals are so vague they could never achieve them if they tried. I want to be happy. Well, that's lovely, but how would you even know when you got there? Jot this down. Every morning, you need to review your goals. Every single morning. Not once a week, not once a month, every morning. You know why? Because the world is designed to distract you. The world will pull you in 1,000 different directions. Your phone will buzz. Your emails will come. Someone will need something. Someone will want something from you. And if your goals aren't the first thing you think about in the morning, they won't be the last thing on your mind at night either. I got up every morning and read my goals, and you know what happened? I remembered why they mattered. I remembered what I was working for. I remembered that this day, this single day, was an opportunity to move closer to what I really wanted. That could be the day everything changes. Not someday, this day. Now, here's the part about becoming ruthless. You have to eliminate everything that doesn't serve your goals. Everything. Jot this down. If it doesn't feed your goal, it's eating your goal. Think about your time. You've got 24 hours. That's all you get. Same as the richest person in the world, same as someone who's incredibly successful. They don't get any more time than you do. So the question is, what are you doing with it? That television program you're watching, that's time you're not spending on your goal. That extra hour scrolling, that's time you're not spending on your goal. Those conversations about other people's business instead of your own, that's mental energy you're not spending on your goal. I'm not saying you can never relax. I'm not saying you can never have fun. But I am saying that if your goal is important, if you're really serious about it, then you have to be ruthless about what gets your time and what doesn't. Here's the key. Most people overestimate what they can do in a year, and they underestimate what they can do in 5 years. That's because they're not thinking about the power of small, consistent effort directed toward a clear goal. If you eliminated just 2 hours of time wasting per day and put that towards your goal, you'd have 10 hours a week. That's 520 hours a year. That's 13 40-hour work weeks directed at your goal. 13 weeks. Imagine what you could accomplish. Let me give you something to think about. The time you waste isn't just lost time, it's stolen time. It's time stolen from your future. It's time stolen from the person you're trying to become. When you waste time, you're robbing yourself. You're making a choice to stay where you are instead of becoming who you want to be. I knew a woman once who wanted to write a book, talked about it for years, but she never did it. And you know what she told me? I don't have time. But she had time for her favorite shows. She had time for the coffee shop meetings. She had time for all sorts of things. The truth was, she didn't make it important enough. She had the same 24 hours as everyone else, but she didn't treat her goal like her life depended on it. And you know what? It might have. If she had written that book, it could have changed her whole life. But she never will know, because she never made the choice to protect that goal. This is the difference between people who achieve and people who don't. It's not intelligence, it's not luck, it's not talent, it's ruthlessness about their goals. It's the ability to say no to everything that doesn't serve what they're trying to build. And let me tell you something else, something that Mr. Shoaff taught me that changed everything. He said, Jim, you can't be a little bit committed. That's like trying to be a little bit pregnant. It doesn't work. Either you're committed or you're not. Either your goal is important or it's not. Either you're going to protect it or you're not. See, most people think they're committed. They think they want success. They think they want to achieve. But when you watch what they actually do with their time, with their money, with their energy, you see a different story. Their actions reveal their true commitments. And the truth is painful sometimes. The truth is that most people are more committed to comfort than they are to their goals, more committed to distraction than direction, more committed to the easy path than the powerful path. But here's the beautiful part. You can change that today. Right now, you can decide that starting this moment, your goal is your number one priority, not your comfort, not your convenience, not your impulse, your goal. I remember reading a story about a businessman who wanted to transform his company. It was failing, losing money, going nowhere. And he made a decision. He said, everything we do from now on has to serve the goal of making this company profitable and strong. Everything. He looked at every meeting. Does it serve the goal? If not, canceled. He looked at every project. Does it serve the goal? If not, eliminated. He looked at every hire. Does this person serve the goal? If not, moved them to different work. Was he ruthless? Absolutely. Was he cruel? No. He was just clear. And you know what happened? That company turned around. In 2 years, it was thriving. All because someone got ruthless about what served their goal and what didn't. Jot this down. You're not being selfish when you protect your goals. You're being honorable. You're being true to yourself. You're exercising the dignity of choice. Because here's the thing. You have a choice. You always do. You can choose to be distracted, or you can choose to be directed. You can choose to go with the flow, or you can choose to swim against it towards something that matters to you. And that's the key word, choice. See, what I've learned over the years, what Mr. Shoaff taught me, is that your life is really the sum total of your choices. Not your circumstances, not your background, not what happened to you, your choices. You make choices every single day, sometimes dozens of times a day, and those choices compound. A choice to go to the gym or stay on the couch. A choice to read a book or watch television. A choice to call that prospect or scroll through your phone. A choice to wake up early or sleep in. These seem small. They seem insignificant. But here's what happens. One choice leads to another. Success compounds. Failure compounds. Everything compounds. Think about compound interest. You know about that, right? Albert Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world. Because of compound interest, a small amount of money invested over time becomes substantial. Well, here's what most people don't realize. The same thing happens with your choices, with your habits, with your commitment to your goals. Small daily choices, compounded over time, create a completely different life. That's how people go from broke to wealthy. That's how people go from unhealthy to healthy. That's how people go from nothing to everything. Not through one giant decision, through a series of small decisions that move in the same direction day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Now, let me ask you something. Rhetorical question. Why do so many people avoid their goals? Why do they procrastinate? Why do they find excuses? Here's the answer. Because when you really commit to a goal, you have to take responsibility. You can't blame the economy anymore. You can't blame your boss. You can't blame your family. You can't blame anybody. You have to look in the mirror and say, if this doesn't happen, it's because I didn't make it happen. That's heavy. That's real. And most people aren't willing to carry that weight. It's much easier to say, well, the economy is bad, so I can't make money. Or, my family didn't support me, so I can't succeed. Or, I wasn't born with talent, so I can't achieve. These are comfortable lies. They let you off the hook. They let you stay where you are without feeling guilty about it. You can blame something external, something you can't control, and suddenly you're not responsible anymore. You're a victim of circumstance instead of the author of your destiny. But here's what responsibility really gives you. Power, freedom. When you take responsibility for your goals and your life, you take back your power. You're no longer waiting for permission. You're no longer waiting for circumstances to change. You're no longer waiting for someone else to make it happen. You're taking action. You're making decisions. You're building something. And that's when life changes. I knew a woman who wanted to start her own business, but she kept waiting for the perfect time. Perfect time never came. The economy wasn't right. Her savings weren't large enough. Her family didn't believe in it. She was waiting for all these external things to align. And meanwhile, years passed. And you know what happened? Someone else started a similar business in her community. Someone who didn't wait for perfect circumstances. Someone who got ruthless about their goal and started anyway. And now that person is thriving while this woman is still waiting, still making excuses, still wishing instead of deciding. But here's what's interesting. When you do carry that weight, when you do take that responsibility, everything changes. Because now you're not a victim. Now you're not waiting for things to happen to you. Now you're the author of your own story. And that's powerful. That changes everything. Let me give you the architecture of a real goal. First, you write it down, specific, measurable, clear. Not I want to be rich. Say I want to have a net worth of $1 million by December 31st of this year. Now you have something. Now you can work with that. Second, you review it daily, every single morning. Get it in your head first thing. Let it be the lens through which you see the day. Because here's what happens when you do that. You start noticing opportunities. You start making different choices. You start saying no to things that don't serve it. That could be the day you meet someone who changes everything. That could be the day you have the insight that moves you forward. But you won't see those things if your goal isn't at the front of your mind. Third, you eliminate what doesn't serve it. This is where the ruthlessness comes in. You look at your schedule, your habits, your relationships, your commitments, and you ask, does this serve my goal? If the answer is no, you eliminate it or you modify it. Or you reduce it. You don't feel guilty about it. You just do it because you've made a decision that your goal is more important. Fourth, you measure your progress. You track it. You write it down. You celebrate the small wins because progress is motivating. Nothing motivates you more than moving forward. When you can see that you're getting closer, that you're actually making progress towards something that matters to you, that gives you energy, that gives you reason to keep going. Here's what I found out. People who achieve big goals aren't smarter than anyone else. They're not more talented. They're not luckier. They're just more ruthless about protecting what matters. That's the only difference. And here's the beautiful thing. Everyone has that capacity. You have it. I have it. We all have the ability to be ruthless about our goals. We all have the ability to say no to distraction. We all have the ability to protect what matters. We're just making a choice. Will we use that capacity or won't we? Let me tell you something about the nature of goals. Your goal doesn't care about your feelings. Your goal doesn't care if you're tired. Your goal is neutral. It's just there, waiting for you to do the work. The person who reaches their goal is the person who shows up regardless of how they feel. The person who's disciplined, the person who's ruthless about keeping their commitment. That's what separates achievers from everyone else. It's discipline. It's showing up. It's keeping the promise you made to yourself even when you don't feel like it. Mr. Schoaf used to say, Jim, your word is your bond. And the most important person you can keep your word with is yourself. Are you keeping your word to yourself? When you tell yourself you're going to work on your goal, do you do it? Or do you find reasons why today isn't the day? Every time you break your commitment to yourself, you're eroding your own integrity. But here's the flip side. Every time you keep your commitment, every time you show up when it's hard, you're building trust with yourself. You're building confidence. You're building momentum. Now you know you can count on yourself. Now you know you're serious. Think about where you'll be in 5 years. You'll be in exactly the same place you are now unless something changes, unless you change, unless you become ruthless about your goals. Not mean, not reckless, just absolutely committed, just absolutely clear, just absolutely unwilling to let your goals be killed by 1,000 small compromises. Here's a question I want you to really sit with. How important is your goal? I mean, really. If I took away your phone right now, if I said you can't watch television, you can't surf the internet, you can't do any of your entertainment for the next year, could you handle that if it meant achieving your goal? Could you? Or would you miss those things too much? Would you be unwilling to make that sacrifice? And if you'd be unwilling to make that sacrifice, then be honest with yourself. Your goal isn't as important as you thought it was. It's a wish. It's a nice idea, but it's not a real goal. Now, I'm not saying you have to give up everything. You don't. But you do have to be willing to give up the things that don't serve it. You have to be willing to sacrifice on the altar of your goal, and most people aren't willing to do that. They want the goal, but they don't want to sacrifice for it. They want to achieve, but they don't want to work for it. They want success, but they don't want to change their habits. This doesn't work. This has never worked. This will never work. Real goals require real sacrifice, real commitment, real ruthlessness. When you understand that, when you accept that, that's when your life changes. Because now you're not playing at success. You're not just thinking about it. You're not just talking about it. You're doing it. You're becoming it. You're the kind of person who does what it takes. That could be the day you decide, right now, right here, this moment. You could say, that's it. I'm done wishing. I'm done hoping. I'm done talking about what I want, not doing anything about it. I'm making a decision. I'm writing down my goals. I'm committing to them. I'm protecting them. I'm becoming ruthless about what gets my time and what doesn't. Starting today, you know what the difference would be? In 1 year, you'd be transformed. Not because of some magic, just because of consistency. Just because of 1 year of daily focus, daily protection, daily choice, 1 year of saying yes to what matters and no to what doesn't, you'd be shocked at what you could accomplish. But it starts with a decision. It starts with the moment you say, my goals matter more than my comfort. My future matters more than my distraction. What I'm trying to build matters more than what I'm tempted to do right now. That's ruthlessness. That's wisdom. That's the beginning of real achievement. Jot this down. The next time someone asks you about your goals, don't give them a wish, give them a goal. Be specific. Tell them what you're going to accomplish and when. Tell them what you're willing to sacrifice. Tell them that you're serious about it. And then prove it. Prove it by your actions. Prove it by your choices. Prove it by your refusal to be distracted. Here's the key. Your goals are a reflection of what you value. If you're not willing to be ruthless about protecting them, then what does that say about what you really value? What does that say about your priorities? Think about that. I want to leave you with one final thought, one final image. Imagine yourself 5 years from now, looking back at today. Imagine the version of you who actually achieved the goals you're thinking about right now. What would that version of you say to the you sitting here today? What would they tell you to do? What would they beg you to do? They'd probably tell you, stop wishing, start deciding, become ruthless about what matters, protect your goals like your life depends on it, because maybe it does. Your financial life depends on it. Your health depends on it. Your happiness depends on it. Your future depends on it. But let me give you something practical before you leave here. Something you can do today, right now. Take out a piece of paper, not your phone, not your computer, a piece of paper and a pen, and write down your one major goal, the thing you really want, the thing that would change your life. Write it down specifically. Write down what you're going to accomplish. Write down when you're going to accomplish it by. Make it real. Make it measurable. Then take a picture of that goal and put it where you'll see it every morning. Your bathroom mirror, your nightstand, your coffee maker, somewhere that forces you to look at it before you do anything else. Because here's what you're going to do. Every single morning for the next 30 days, you're going to read that goal out loud. Out loud. You're going to say it, you're going to hear it, you're going to commit to it again and again. And here's what's going to happen. Your brain is going to start looking for ways to achieve it. You're going to notice opportunities you would have missed before. You're going to make different choices. You're going to be more ruthless about what gets your time. And in 30 days, you won't be the same person. You'll be on your way. That's not magic. That's not luck. That's the power of clarity. That's the power of focus. That's the power of becoming ruthless about what matters. And that could be the day everything changes. Not next month, not next year, not someday, today, this moment, right now. So what are you going to do about it? Become the type of person who finishes. I once asked a room full of people, how many of you have started something this year? Every hand went up, every single hand. And then I asked how many of you finished it, and the room got real quiet. You could hear the silence, you could feel it, nobody wanted to answer. That's the moment right there. That's the whole conversation. Because in that silence, I understood something that changed my life. Everybody starts. Everybody has the dream. Everybody has the vision. Everybody can begin. But finishing is a different animal altogether. Let me say that again. Finishing is a different animal altogether. See, I've spent my life studying people, not from books, from life, from experience, from watching men and women work and struggle and build. And one thing became crystal clear to me early on. The starting is easy. It's the finishing that separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. Mr. Shoaff, my mentor, he taught me this. He said, Jim, any child can start something. You've got enthusiasm, you've got dreams, you've got hope, but a person of character, a person of real distinction, that person finishes what they started. He'd lean back and say, remember this, the world will pay you handsomely for finishing. And he was right. But not just in money, in something deeper. in something that money can't buy. Here's what I want you to understand tonight. Finishing is about identity. It's about who you are. Because when you finish something, really finish it. Not halfway, not when it gets hard, but actually complete it. You change who you are. You become someone different. You become a finisher. Think about that word, finisher. Say it to yourself, I'm a finisher. How does that feel? It feels different than saying, I'm a starter, because a starter is all potential. A finisher is actual. Actual results, actual accomplishment, actual change. Now, I want to talk about why this is so rare, because it is rare. And that's the whole point. If everybody finished, it wouldn't matter, but they don't. And so it becomes your superpower. Starting is easy because starting is all dream. You're excited, you're enthusiastic, you've got hope, you see yourself already there, you're imagining the finished product, the success, the achievement. That feeling is wonderful. That feeling is intoxicating. So you start, you begin, you take the first step. But then something happens. Something always happens. The dream meets reality. The vision meets the work. And most people, the vast majority, they slip away quietly. They find another dream, another project, another reason why this particular thing isn't going to work out right now anyway. I've seen this 1,000 times. A woman signs up for the gym, January 1st, new year, new her. She goes twice. Then life gets busy. Then the soreness kicks in. Then she remembers she never really liked leg day anyway, so she finds a new gym or a new fitness program, or she decides that yoga is really more her style. But the old gym membership, that gets forgotten. A man decides to write a book. He's got a great idea. Sat down at midnight, filled with passion, wrote 3,000 words. Amazing stuff. His wife read it. She said it's wonderful. And he's planning the book tour in his mind. But then chapter 4 gets hard. The words don't come. The story doesn't flow. It feels like work. And you know what? He's got a new idea for a podcast anyway. So the book, it sits on the hard drive, gathering digital dust. This is the pattern. This is what I see over and over. Starting, but finishing, that's rare. And here's the tragedy. Are you listening? Here's the tragedy. People get so busy starting things that they never get to experience the power of finishing. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're standing at the base of a mountain. You look up and you see the peak. It's beautiful. It's majestic. You say, I'm going to climb that mountain. And it feels good just to say it. You're already imagining how it's going to feel to stand up there. The view, the accomplishment. You start climbing. The first part of the trail is easy. It's well worn. Lots of people have walked it, and you're making good progress. You feel like you're really doing this. Your legs are strong. Your spirit is strong. This is great. But then the trail gets steeper. The air gets thinner. Your legs burn. Your breath gets short. You're only halfway up. Maybe you're 3/4 up. But that peak, it still looks really far away. And right about here, on most mountains, you'll find people sitting on rocks, tired, discouraged, wondering if this was really such a good idea. This is the last part of the climb, and this is where the finishers separate from the starters. Because at this point, starting has lost all its glamour. Starting is behind you. The enthusiasm is gone. The excitement is gone. The people who started with you, half of them have turned back. And the only thing that's going to get you to the top is something else entirely, something deeper. It's called character. It's called commitment. It's called the decision to finish. And when you get to the top, when you stand on that peak and look out at the world below, that view is not for the people who started the climb. That view is for the people who finished it. This matters more than I can express in words. This is not a small thing. I remember one time, I was working with a young man, and he had started about 17 different business projects. 17. He'd come to me, excited about each one. Jim, This is the one. I can feel it. This is going to be different. And every time, after about 6 weeks, I wouldn't hear from him anymore. Or I'd hear, yeah, that one kind of fizzled, but I've got this other idea. Finally, I said to him, stop. Just stop. I don't want to hear about your ideas anymore. I want to hear about what you finished. He got defensive. He said, but what if I start the wrong thing? And I said, here's what's worse than starting the wrong thing. Not finishing the right thing. Because if you finish something, if you complete it, if you stick with it, you learn, you grow, you change, you become someone different. But if you just keep starting and starting and starting, you stay the same. You're a professional starter, and the world is full of professional starters. The key, and jot this down, the key is not having the perfect idea. The key is being someone who finishes. See, so many people wait to start until they're sure. They want the perfect idea, the perfect timing, the perfect conditions. And they're waiting and waiting and waiting, analyzing and planning and preparing. And you know what? Their life passes them by. But that's actually not the worst version of this problem. The worst version is this. You start, you're excited, you begin, but then when it gets hard, when the resistance comes, when the reality doesn't match the fantasy, you quit. And you quit on something that, if you just stuck with it a little longer, you would have finished. And finishing changes everything. I want to tell you about the last 10%. The last 10% of anything is where most people quit. It's not the first 50%. The first 50% is exciting. You're new. You're learning. You're growing. The first 50% is romance. But the last 10% is grind. The last 10% is where you don't feel like it anymore. You're tired. You've been working. You can see the finish line, but it's not close enough yet. It's not real yet. And your mind starts playing tricks on you. It starts saying, this isn't actually that important. Why am I doing this anyway? Nobody cares if I finish this. I could stop right now and nobody would even know. This is a lie. Your mind is lying to you. Because you would know, I would know, God would know, and more importantly, you would know. Because finishing is not about the outside world. Finishing is about the inside world. Finishing is about how you see yourself. When you finish something, you make a deposit in the bank of self-trust. You tell yourself, I can finish. When I start something, I'm going to see it through. And that belief, that identity, becomes more valuable than anything money can buy. Let me tell you why. Imagine you're standing in front of a door. This door represents a bigger opportunity, a bigger goal, a bigger dream. But before you can go through that door, you have to prove to yourself that you can finish. You have to prove that you're not a quitter. You have to prove that you follow through. Now, here's the question. Are you the kind of person who can walk through that door? Are you the kind of person who has earned the right to pursue the bigger dream? Well, that depends on whether you finish the last thing. That depends on whether you're a finisher. Mr. Schoaf told me something once. He said, Jim, people are not lazy. That's not the problem. People are not stupid. That's not the problem either. He said, the problem is that people don't have a clear picture of who they are. He said, if you knew, I mean really knew, that you were the type of person who finishes, how would that change your life? How would you act differently? What would you attempt? That question haunted me in the best way, because once I understood that I could choose to be a finisher, everything changed. Here's something most people don't understand. You become what you repeatedly do. You become the sum of your habits. And finishing is a habit. Starting is easy, but finishing has to be developed. It has to be chosen over and over again. Let me tell you about a woman I knew. She wanted to read more. That's a beautiful goal. She said, I used to read, I miss it. I want to read again. But every time she'd start a book, about 1/3 of the way through, she'd put it down. There was always something else to do. The book got boring. The commitment felt heavy. So I asked her, have you finished a book in the last few years? She thought about it. No, I don't think I have. Then that's the problem, I said. You're not a reader yet. You're a starter. But here's what you're going to do. You're going to pick one book, just one, and you're going to read it to the end. You're going to finish it. I don't care if it's short. I don't care if it takes you 2 months, but you're going to finish one book. 6 weeks later, she called me. I actually finished a book. I asked her, how do you feel? She said, different. I feel different about myself. And that's the magic. That's the real magic. Not the book, not the accomplishment of reading one book, but the change in her identity. She was now someone who finishes books. You know what happened next? She finished another book and another. Because once you develop the identity of a finisher, finishing gets easier. Not because the work gets easier, but because your mind is already committed to the idea. You're not fighting with yourself about whether you're going to finish. You already know you are. This is profound. This is what people miss. They're always waiting for motivation. They're always waiting to feel like it. They're always waiting for the conditions to be perfect. But a person with the identity of a finisher, they don't wait, they just finish. They do the thing regardless of how they feel. Let me ask you something. How many things are you currently working on right now? Not thinking about, not planning, but actually working on. Write down your honest answer. Now ask yourself, of those things, how many will you finish? If the answer is less than the number you're working on, you've got a problem because you're operating in startup mode. You're bouncing around like a ball in a room with no walls. You're starting and starting and starting, but you're not finishing. Here's what I want you to do, starting today, right now. I want you to look at what you're working on. And I want you to make a list of everything you've started but not finished. Everything. The books you started reading, the projects at work, the health goals, the relationships you let slide, the commitments you made to yourself. Everything. Now I want you to look at that list, and I want you to feel something. I want you to feel the weight of it, because that's the weight you're carrying. Every unfinished thing is a small betrayal of yourself. Every started but not finished goal is evidence in the case you're building against your own character. But here's the good news. You can change that. Starting today, you can start becoming a finisher. The first step is this. Stop starting new things. I know that sounds radical, but hear me out. If you're not finishing what you started, the last thing you need is to start something else. You need to get serious about finishing. Pick one thing, just one, whatever is closest to being done, whatever you can realistically finish in the next few weeks, and commit to finishing it. Not to trying, not to working on it, but to finishing it. Because here's what happens when you finish something. Momentum. Real momentum. Not the fake momentum of enthusiasm, but real momentum. The momentum that comes from knowing you finished something. And then you finish another thing, and another, and suddenly you're not the person who starts things, you're the person who finishes them. That's your identity now. That's who you are. I want to paint you another picture. Imagine two people, both want to accomplish their goals, both have dreams, both have the same talent, the same intelligence, the same opportunities. The first person starts a lot. He's got 10 projects going at once. He's excited about all of them, but none of them are done. His house is full of half-finished projects. His mind is full of half-finished ideas. He feels busy but not accomplished. He feels active but not successful. And worst of all, he's starting to believe that he's just not good at following through. He's starting to believe he's a quitter. And belief, my friend, becomes behavior. The second person, she starts less, but what she starts, she finishes. She completes one project, then moves to the next. Her track record is not long, but it's clean. It's clear. She looks at herself and sees a finisher. And so, when new opportunities come, she rises to meet them because she knows she can finish them. 15 years later, the difference is staggering. Not because the second person is smarter or luckier, but because of who she became someone who finishes, and that changes everything. This is not magical thinking. This is cause and effect. This is psychology. This is character. Let me tell you something about your word. Your word to yourself. When you start something and don't finish it, you're training yourself to break your word. You're telling yourself, I don't keep my commitments. I'm not reliable. I'm not someone who can be counted on. And then you wonder why you don't believe in yourself. You wonder why motivation is hard to find. You wonder why you don't have the confidence to pursue your biggest dreams. Well, here's the answer. It's because you broke your word to yourself multiple times. And now you're trying to pursue something big. But your own mind is saying, remember all those things you said you were going to do. You didn't finish those. Why should I believe you about this? Your mind is right. You have to prove it to yourself first. This is the invisible work. This is the work that nobody sees. This is the work that happens between you and you. When you finish a commitment to yourself, when you complete something you said you were going to complete, you're building the most important relationship in your life. Your relationship with yourself. And you can't fake this. You can't shortcut this. You have to actually do it. Here's what Mr. Schoaf told me once. He said, Jim, the universe doesn't care about your intentions. The universe cares about your results. He said, you can intend all day long, but the universe rewards completion. And he was talking about money, but he was really talking about life. Life rewards completion. Opportunity rewards completion. Your own mind rewards completion. When you start something and finish it, something shifts. Something changes in your chemistry. Something changes in how you see yourself. You've proven something to yourself. And that proof becomes the foundation for everything else you're going to build. I want you to think about something. Think about a time when you finished something difficult, something you weren't sure you could do, but you did it anyway. Maybe it was a race. Maybe it was a project. Maybe it was finishing school. Maybe it was something at work that seemed impossible, but you completed it anyway. Close your eyes for a second and remember that feeling. Remember the relief. Remember the pride. Remember the satisfaction. Remember knowing that you had done what you said you were going to do. That feeling is real, and that feeling is available to you right now. Not in the future, now. All you have to do is finish something. One thing. Complete it. See it through to the end. Here's the truth that most people never figure out. Finishing the small things makes finishing the big things possible. Nobody wakes up one day and finishes their life's work without first learning how to finish smaller things. The habit has to be developed. The skill has to be learned. The identity has to be built. I knew a man who wanted to be a writer. Big dreams. He was going to write the great American novel. But every time he sat down to write, he was so focused on this huge goal that he felt paralyzed. He'd write a few paragraphs and feel like it was terrible because it wasn't yet the great novel he imagined, and he'd quit. I told him, stop, forget the novel, write something short, write an article, 3,000 words, and finish it. I don't care if it's not great, finish it. He did, and it felt good. He finished something, and then he wrote another article, and another, and gradually his writing got better, and his confidence got better. And eventually, he had the foundation to write the book he wanted to write because he had learned the most important skill, how to finish. This is why it's so important. Not because finishing a book or a project matters in some absolute sense, but because finishing anything changes who you are. It builds the muscle of commitment. It develops the character trait of follow-through. It proves to yourself that you can say you're going to do something and then actually do it. And that changes everything. I want to talk about resistance for a moment, because resistance is real. Resistance is what shows up in the last 10%. When you're building momentum, when the thing is exciting, resistance is quiet. But as you get closer to finishing, as the excitement fades and the work becomes routine, resistance gets loud. It whispers things like, "This isn't that important." It says, "Nobody really cares if you finish." It says, "You could stop now and that would be fine." All of that is a lie designed to keep you from finishing. Real resistance is the universe's way of testing you. It's asking, are you serious about this? Do you really want to finish, or are you just another starter? And when you push through that resistance, when you finish anyway, you've passed the test. You've proven something. Not to the universe, to yourself. Here's my challenge to you. Before this day is done, before you go to sleep tonight, I want you to finish something. It doesn't have to be big. It could be small. Clean that drawer you've been meaning to clean. Finish that email you've been meaning to send. Complete that task you've been putting off. Finish that chapter of the book. Do whatever it takes to end your day having finished something you started. And then notice how you feel. Notice how you see yourself differently. Notice how you're a little bit more of a finisher than you were this morning. And then tomorrow, do it again. This is how you build the identity. This is how you become the type of person who finishes. Not in your imagination, not in your thinking, but in your actual behavior, in your actual life. Because that's the real magic. The real magic is not in the big dreams. The big dreams are great, but the real magic is in becoming the type of person who finishes, because once you're that person, there's nothing you can't do. There's no dream you can't pursue. There's no goal you can't accomplish. Because you've already proven to yourself that you can finish. And in a world full of starters, a finisher is unstoppable. That's the real power. That's the real transformation. So start today, finish something, and then finish another thing, and let that become your reputation, not just to other people, but to yourself. Because the person you see when you look in the mirror needs to see someone who finishes, someone who completes, someone who follows through. And once you are that person, the whole world opens up. Thank you